From the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today, I'm very pleased to welcome a guest that was with me actually in episode number 114 that was last year. And, this is the third time I'm bringing previous guests because, at that time, the time wasn't enough for us to discuss. And especially because Robert is expert in the field of AI. And, at that time we discussed a lot and, ChatGPT was new. Robert, thank you very much for being with me again today. And thank you for your time. Just for people who, maybe they didn't see the first episode, if you just, reintroduce yourself, what you are up to these days.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, Mehmet, thanks so much for having me back. And congratulations on the great success of the podcast. I follow it regularly. You're really doing a great service to the public and the community by hosting all of these episodes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I am a patent attorney. I specialize in obtaining, enforcing, maintaining patents for software and AI. I've been doing that for over 25 years, and it's a super exciting time to be in the field and seeing everything come to fruition. I am a co-founder of the law firm of Blue Shift IP, software patent experts. In addition, I love talking about how to use AI, to leverage AI in your own work, whether it be as a professional, like a lawyer or a doctor, marketer, writer, podcaster, and how to use AI to become more productive, efficient, and how to supplement and complement and boost your creativity. So I'm glad to talk about any of those topics today. Again, very exciting time to be in the AI world where there's so much available to really use.
It is, and before we start, and then before you joined as well. So during the day, I was reviewing, what we have discussed, and this is like, it's like just a couple of months back. It's not like 2 or 3 years back, and a lot of things have changed. In less than 1 year. So, from your what you've seen, and because I remember like both of us how we were very excited about the AI. So first, before we dig into the use cases you just mentioned, like, have you seen, like, Robert, anything like this before, like about this fast shift and this adoption of AI? I just want to see how you, I would say, evaluate, what happened with AI last year during 2023.
Yeah. I have never seen any pace of innovation like this that we're experiencing now. I've been using computers since the early 80s, and you can think about some previous revolutions we've experienced. There was the personal computer, absolutely incredible, brought computing power to the average person's home at a low cost, absolutely incredible. Then there was multimedia. There was the internet, starting, although the internet was around since the 60s or the 70s, we usually talk about the introduction of the web in the mid-90s as the start of the commercial and public internet revolution. Absolutely incredible. Smartphones and mobile devices, around late 2008, 2009. All of those things are absolutely incredible. And yet I would say that what we're experiencing with AI is much bigger and much faster in its ability to reach more people more quickly and impact people's work and ability to access and understand information and to get work done. I mean, although the tools underlying something like ChatGPT were around for a long time, about a year ago, end of November 2022, which I call the dividing line between before ChatGPT, BC ChatGPT, and after ChatGPT, because it was such a stark line. That put into the hands of anyone with an internet connection for free the ability not just to access information, which you could say was around since search engines became available, but the ability to summarize, synthesize information, explain information, but also, and this is why we call it generative AI, to create new information, to start to perform tasks based on instructions, and all using natural language that anyone can use. So you can obviously provide a natural language instruction to ChatGPT, find me a recipe or write me a poem. Those are two different things. One of them is to extract existing information. Another one is to synthesize new information. We can argue about the dividing line between those two, and a lot of people do. But then so provide that natural language input and to get clear, easy to understand natural language output. I mean, that's what's been so absolutely revolutionary, is to take the types of AI tools that were previously available only to technical experts who understood how to program using either programming languages or otherwise very highly technical ways, brought that into the hands of the average person in an easy to use way, for free, from any device. I mean, that's just absolutely incredible. Now we can talk next about what's happened since then. As you said, even if that's all that happened and nothing improved since day one of ChatGPT, I'd say we'd be dealing with the ramifications of that for a very, very long time. And yet the advancements that have happened in that last year are just absolutely incredible. And they're coming about on a nearly daily basis. That's the next part. When you ask me, have I seen anything like this before? I mean, the personal computer revolution happened over the course of a decade or two. Even the internet, as fast as it seemed to happen with the web, the web grew and improved over many, many years. These improvements we're seeing with AI are rolling out on a nearly daily basis. And sometimes they're very significant improvements, often to tools, again, that are available at low or no cost to anyone, and that are easy to use by anybody with little or no technical skill, which is part of what's being called the democratization of AI, meaning bringing the power of all of this available to a much, much larger range of people than could ever use it before. I'll stop there because, there's a lot of directions we can go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what I want to start with, and this is something we talked about last time we spoke, and actually, it was something that kept coming every time I was speaking to an AI expert or enthusiast, and even sometimes myself when I was sharing some articles here and there. Now, I know you have wrote an article called "Turning the Tables," and you talk about professionals evolving into supervisory roles over AI. And this is, like when I read the article, it attracted me. Even the title, it's very hooking actually. Now, but I want you from your, because you wrote this, and of course you did some studies on that. I want you to describe to us, Robert, what qualities and skills are crucial for people like us, professionals, to successfully manage and work alongside AI? Because I remember very well when we said like the people who would be able to master AI will be able to thrive and so on. But now you started to talk about managing and working alongside the AI system. So I wanted to a little bit describe, the qualities and skills here that we need to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing that's always a topic of any conversation about AI is the fear of being replaced by AI. it comes up every time I talk to someone. People are afraid. They may not, if they're a business person or a programmer, they may not use the word fear because it might be an embarrassing thing to admit. So they phrase it in other ways. But underlying a lot of the discussion is fear. You can look to science fiction. We have so much of it. Terminator, it often comes up. The Matrix. So much science fiction and mythology plays on and attends to this fear we have that we are going to create technology that's going to become so powerful that humans will either just become obsolete or will actually be replaced in some more nefarious way by technology. And so one of the motivations for this article was to point out how humans will always be needed. There will always be an important, valuable place for humans. But it's also true that AI is rapidly automating a lot of skills that humans have been valued for in the past. In the context of writing, for example, something like ChatGPT and other large language model-based tools are quite good at being at least average writers, and they're getting better. They're getting really good at writing basic code. For lawyers, they're becoming quite good at summarizing documents, finding errors in documents, even suggesting legal arguments. This is a pretty significant fraction of what lawyers often do. So the point I make in the article is that if you want to remain valuable, actually become even more valuable as a human, and not be replaced by AI, you're going to have to learn a new set of skills to supplement your own set of skills. And the way I framed this was to say, as a guideline for always thinking about what are those skills you'll need to learn. Think about yourself in your current job, whatever that job is. Again, writer, marketer, programmer, lawyer, and ask, what are the skills that your current boss or supervisor needs to have to supervise you effectively? It might be to give you clear guidance about the task that person needs you to perform. It might be to give you background materials, documents, studies, procedures that you should follow when performing the task. Ask, what are those skills your boss should need to supervise you well? Those are the skills you should be focusing on developing now, so that when AI becomes capable of doing the tasks that you are now performing, you will be able to supervise it as your effective replacement. I'm saying that metaphorically. ChatGPT doesn't just wake up in the morning and do tasks on its own. It needs to be given guidance and instructions in the form of prompts. And not all prompts are equally good at getting the job done. There's a lot of difference in the quality of the output you get based on the quality of the prompts you provide. So the article goes through a sequence of examples for different types of job roles about the kinds of skills you will benefit from to become an effective supervisor of the AI that might otherwise or may actually replace you. But so that once you have those skills, by being able to supervise the AI, you'll both remain valuable but become even more effective. And the last point I'll make on that is that by retaining the old skills you had, you'll become even more effective, because the AI is never going to get the whole job done for you. As we know, keep using ChatGPT as an example. It's pretty good at a lot of things. It's quite bad at a lot of things. It makes mistakes. It makes errors. Its output needs to be fixed, refined, massaged in various ways, supplemented. So if you can gain those new supervisory skills, the ability to give instructions effectively to AI, and also manually revise its outputs, manually create other outputs, and know when to use the old skills and the new AI supervisory skills, you will both be more effective and productive and be more put yourself at the top of the value chain.
That's wonderful. Now, one thing, because when we started the discussion, you talked about, and this is a lot of my guests also brought it, and even myself, I was excited about it, about, the idea of having multiple AI bots, agents, working for you. Now, do you think, Robert, that, and this is, the way I understood from you, is we're not talking anymore about replacing jobs, but, it's becoming, as everyone becomes kind of a, as you said, supervisor or manager. Like, uh, now, people might see this as opportunity, and some people might see this as a threat, right? So, in your opinion, can we see where everyone has a title manager, because actually they are managing these bots? And remember, like, the bots that we're talking, the AI bots, actually are kind of a specialized team. So you might, and actually I've spoke to maybe 3 or 4 founders who they focused all their efforts on building specialized bots in specific area. For example, an AI bot who does only finance, another one that does only legal, like, and another, and then they try to bring all these together, and it's kind of everyone needs to become kind of a chief operating officer, kind of these skills. But again, from your perspective, do you see this as an opportunity or do you see this as a threat? Because maybe someone will say, hey, but not everyone can become a leader or supervisor. So, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, it is a threat and it is an opportunity. It's both. Every threat is an opportunity, or you can choose to see every threat as an opportunity. So I'm not going to say it's not a threat, and that's why I say if you want to avoid being replaced when AI becomes increasingly capable of automating specific skills that you previously performed yourself manually, then you need to learn the new skills for supervising. The bot issue is really interesting. I know a lot of people, as you said, are saying that that's the next stage, is to develop more automated bots, because something like ChatGPT is it automates a certain task, but still it requires a human to provide every single input and guide it at every step along the way. So the next level would be bots that, as you said, either are specific to a particular domain, like finance or law, or booking meetings or things like that. And then the next stage everyone's talking about is connecting all those bots up together to communicate with and interact with each other autonomously. I am sure that that's going to be happening. It's a big open question how quickly that's going, particularly the latter part, the interaction of multiple autonomous agents that perform different tasks, how quickly that's going to become feasible in a way that's really productive. I don't know, I don't have a crystal ball, but I suspect that that's going to require overcoming more technical hurdles and may take longer than some people think, because the human guidance for now is still super valuable for both keeping the AI on task and for keeping it from just generally going too far astray. I'll use a specific example as an easy to understand metaphor, which is you've probably seen a lot of the tools out now that can generate video, right? So we've gone from things like DALL-E and Midjourney, which can create a single image from text. It's quite amazing. And I talk about what's happened over the last year. I've seen people post images they created using a single prompt in Midjourney, from version 4 to 5, 5.16, and you can see that how much incredibly better the images have gotten over time from the same prompt, just from the image generator, improving over the course of a year, which is an amazingly short amount of time. But then there's now tools that will go from just a single image that you give it, give it an image of a dog, and you say generate video, and it'll generate a 6-second video of that dog running, whatever it thinks was the logical motion to generate based on the initial image. The challenge that those image generators have in going much further than a few seconds is they don't know, so to speak, what direction to keep taking the video in. and they start veering off further and further from the initial video, and which might be fine, but in most cases, after 20 seconds, you end up with something that's not what you as the human really wanted or needed out of the output. And so that general problem of drift is something that's an issue with all kinds of bots once we let them just run free for too long or too far. I mean, they might do things that are productive in some sense, but that might not be what you as the human wanted or needed out of it. So I suspect that that's why it's going to be valuable or perhaps even necessary to have humans in the loop, whether it be for a special purpose bot over time, or certainly for multiple autonomous agents, because they're just going to start going far afield of what we want or need or what's useful for us. And that I actually find is fascinating. The problem of how to design processes and skills, habits, routines for human computer or human AI interaction, particularly in that context of autonomous bots. You know, what are the best ways for humans to, let's say, be monitoring a set of bots and course correcting them over time as they go off course, giving them new input or feedback. It's another example of what I've been calling the supervising, but I don't think we know a lot yet about what the best practices are for that. And we're probably not going to be able to know too much until the systems get evolved and we can experiment with them. It's going to be a really fascinating time, though. I think what's interesting is, we can draw from what people have learned in business management theory, right? And practice, because it's very much analogous to working with large teams, with small or large teams of people in a business. So we're going to see interesting and strange ways in which knowledge from diverse fields like computer science and management all come together to produce new, more effective outcomes. It's going to be a fascinating time.
I agree with you, Robert, and like the discussions again. Some of my guests and some of people, of course, outside, they think this will happen very, very fast. And some people, they say no, we still need some time. Some of my guests, they believe that, like the problem is, like this topic, it's very debatable. And I'm gonna relate to the next question. But what I wanted to say, some people, they say already, what they talk about the artificial general AI, actually it's already here, right? Some people, they say this because, to your point, like now, everything we can even think about it. Back in the days, we used to say Google it or Bing it or whatever search engine, and now go find an AI to do this. And honestly speaking, what I'm seeing is there is a fast pace in the way things are moving, but, and this is how I'm relating to the next question, I think, and you covered this in another article, and I loved that when I read it, about, actually, sometimes we see people, they don't understand actually what is this whole AI is. And to your point about, for example, when you mentioned about the video tools, that they can just do few things, but people have this misconception about AI, right? And you wrote the article called LLMs just don't understand, so what, right? So, and I loved it because, again, even with founders who are building things related to AI somehow, the problem is they told me always, our problem is when we go to people and we say AI tool, their first thing that comes to their mind is the chat GPT thing, right? And and we forget about, like, the chat GPT is actually built on something which is called the transformer model, which is one of the LLMs, large language models out there. And like, there is a lack of consciousness, understanding. So I want you, Robert, to little bit shed some light on this part, right? About the LLM's capabilities, but still, how we can use them. And because in that article, like you were mentioning some terms like merely, just, which are like, people sometimes they put too much hope, do you think, on what this
Yeah,
AI currently it can do? So if you can a little bit like,
yeah.
dissect that one.
Yeah, I mean, you raised some great points, which is we have, there are some people, and they often are founders, understandably, because they see the incredible promise of AI. So there's some people who I think go too far in assuming that AI is going to be able to do too much too quickly. But, I think sometimes that's what's needed to drive people to put in all of the time and energy they need to put in to be founders. So those people, I think they're going too far, kind of over promising what AI can do. And then there's people on the other end, and I see a lot of this amongst lawyers who think that because AI isn't perfect or can't do everything, they just shouldn't bother using it for any purpose at all. And those are two extremes, which I think are counterproductive. If you promise too much, I think you run the risk of contributing to a hype cycle in which the public relies on your promises and then inevitably becomes disappointed. And that's happened so many times in the history of technology, certainly not just in AI, but definitely in AI. I mean, maybe some of your listeners are familiar with the term AI winter. There's been a few of them over the past few decades. Starting in the 50s, when there was a conference at Dartmouth in, I think, 1956. It was the place where the term AI was coined. And there were some brilliant people there who thought that over the course of a summer, they were going to be able to solve what we now call natural language processing. It was a little bit too ambitious. They didn't understand how difficult it was going to be. But people in the field kept making these promises. Don't worry, general artificial intelligence is just around the corner. And the public and investors and large companies were relying on these promises, and then they failed to come to fruition. And then what happened? We'd go through an AI winter, meaning people stopped investing in AI. People heard the term AI and said, I don't believe that. That's not real. It's not going to work. It's like the old fairy tale of the boy who cried wolf, where people just don't believe you when you keep making promises that you can't follow through on. So that's the first risk. But on the other side, I mentioned, I'll point out my colleagues, many lawyers, who look at something like ChatGPT and say, I ask it a question, and the answer contains a hallucination. It contains a citation to a legal decision that is not real, that doesn't exist. Therefore, I will not use this tool for any purpose. And I think that is short-sighted and actually counterproductive. What do I mean by counterproductive? I mean, that person stands to benefit significantly from ChatGPT if they could come to an understanding of what its strengths and its weaknesses are, because then you can use a tool like that for its strengths. What are some of its strengths? These tools can often summarize large documents really well, not perfectly, but really well. That's super helpful. And I often point to the analogy in the real world. As a lawyer, for example, if you have a junior lawyer or a law student as an intern, and you ask them to summarize a document, don't you know that they're not going to give you a perfect 100% accurate summary? And if the answer to that is yes, I'd ask, well, why do you have them do that task? Why don't you just say, I'm never going to use such a person to do a task for me? It's because you do the cost benefit analysis, first of all, and you say, having that person do that task might save me 2 hours of time. And I know I'm going to need to spend 10 minutes, maybe fact checking what they've done. But that overall process of me saving 2 hours and spending 10 minutes fact checking is to my benefit compared to me having to do all of the work. So think of tools like ChatGPT in the same way. You need to learn about what their strengths and weaknesses are. And some of those strengths and weaknesses are not the same as the strengths and weaknesses of either prior tools like search engines or the strengths and weaknesses of human assistance. So it does take some time to learn, but once you can learn those strengths and weaknesses, the speed and generally high quality, but not perfect quality, of LLMs is so significant that you can get real gains from them. Now, let me turn to the argument about LLMs don't understand. The point of that was to address a very, very common criticism I see, and this is not just from lawyers. This is from people in the computer science and AI world who say an LLM does not engage in reasoning. If I ask it to solve a problem, and it gives me an answer where the output is accurate. How should I, if I want to go to the grocery store and carry more stuff that I can carry in one trip from the store to my car, what should I do? And it gives a pretty good answer. Well, there are people who say, but you know what? It's just parroting back text that it's seen before in the training data. It's not engaging in reasoning, and therefore you can't rely on it. So there again, I would say, well, having almost too much knowledge about how the LLM works can sabotage you, because if in many cases an LLM can provide you with an answer that is accurate, why does it matter whether it created that answer by reasoning or created that answer through a process in which the LLM understood what it was doing? As long as the output is useful to you, and as long as you have some procedure or set of tactics in your bag for verifying or checking the accuracy, why does it matter? Computers generally, outside of AI, don't understand what they're doing. Computers internally are really just a very large set of switches that turn on and off in response to the way we program them and the inputs we give them. They don't understand anything of what they're doing, but we've learned over the years how to program them in a way that when we give them an input and get an output, the output is accurate or accurate enough that the speed gain and the automation gain is great enough that we can rely on the output. I think part of the reason why people are so focused on arguing that LLMs don't understand and can't engage in reasoning is some sort of unstated or unconscious anthropomorphism, or some, I would call it ego almost, some belief that we as humans have some unique hold on reasoning, and we want to hold on to our own value at doing that. And then when we see that LLMs can't reason, we can point to that fact as a way of protecting or defending our own turf in the world of reasoning and logic. But I would suggest, let's try to let go of that ego and just get the benefits, the practical benefits we can out of LLMs. It's true that their lack of ability to reason can lead them to produce incorrect results. So then let's just find ways to catch those results when they're incorrect and fix them. That's what businesses do all the time. I hate to say it, but businesses employ us as humans who are far from perfect. None of us produces perfect, accurate output all the time. You know what? I'll let you in on a secret. We as humans often produce a work product that wasn't based on reasoning, is based on habit or hunches or intuition or bias or all of these things. And so a good business still employs all of us as humans knowing that, and it puts procedures into place for checking our work, enabling us to check each other's work, check our work using computers, using spell checkers, grammar checkers, databases, search, all kinds of things, so that the overall process is still as accurate as it can be in light of the imperfect human and machine components that make that process up. And once you see it that way, I think the fact that LLMs don't know what they're doing, aren't conscious, don't engage in reasoning, all becomes largely irrelevant.
And I have an advice, which is, I did it myself at some stage. So I went to ChatGPT. Now, okay, you can do this and you can understand more. So I wrote this. I'm going to put it in the show note also as well. Type this. Ask ChatGPT this. What is the transformer paper about that was behind GPT? and it will tell you about this paper, which was actually developed by researchers at Google, funny enough, who were in DeepMind. And the title of the paper is "Attention is All You Need," right? So I advise everyone, and because what ChatGPT will try to explain to you in simple terms, right? So this is the so it will explain to you how actually the LLM, and GPT is good one because this is what the world knows, and we know there's a lot of other models, but this is what uh, every single one of us, I believe, um, they've seen because of ChatGPT, OpenAI, and you will get exactly what you were explaining, Robert, like about how this works. And actually, what the researchers are trying to do, or try to actually they achieve, is to mimic the way we humans we act. Because when you I remember when I was at school, and I think everyone would remember when they used to give us this large, piece of literature, whatever it is, and they used to tell you, okay, go and write a summary about it, right? So, and they used to highlight, you need to use different words, you need to rephrase things, you need to, and this is actually what GPT does. It takes the input that we know it's actually trained for this. Now, what they have done is that they added, this. Some people, they don't like to call it reasoning, and I can understand, but we need to also convey that the word reasoning here, it's different from consciousness, right, Robert? Like, it's not the
Right.
same as we say, conscious. We are the conscious ones because we give the prompt to ChatGPT. But the reasoning here, and sorry if I'm taking the the lights from you, Robert, because it's a very important one. So, simple example, and about an AI case not related to ChatGPT. So if you play any board game, let's say chess, so you do some calculations, whatever you want to call it, in your mind. You start to calculate the steps. If I do this, the other guy will do that, and this is like the reasoning. You're trying to expect what the opponent would do, and based on that, you move your piece. And actually, when you take this, you put it into a software or like program, actually you are mimicking the reasoning of a human. And actually the machine, because it has much faster capabilities, actually it's only performing this task at that time. It does it very well, and it does it very fast. And this is why uh, everyone maybe remember when the IBM program won over the Kasparov, right? So it was the big thing at that time. So it's the same thing with ChatGPT. So when we say reasoning, and this is why I also get too much excited about this article from you, Robert. And this misconception: reasoning is not consciousness; it's something else, right? So 100% on that one with you. Now, you gave some um, you mentioned some advice on how we can, I would say, make corrections. So in your opinion, how we can address the accuracy of the LLM output. So you suggest developing manual procedures, creating systems. So what steps really organization, because here we're talking business, right? So what if I'm a business owner today, or maybe I'm a chief AI officer, I'm responsible for the AI adoption at my organizations. What are the things that I can do?
The first thing is the really positive news is that there are companies out there addressing this problem with technology right now. I think we're already seeing, I'll say, for example, in the law, there are some legal specific products for things like doing legal research or drafting or revising contracts. You mentioned these domain specific bots. These are very domain specific AI tools that are combining language models with databases and rules and error checking algorithms, essentially putting all these things together to address the problem of what is colloquially called hallucinations, or you could just call inaccuracies that result from LLMs. I think in the near term, that's a really good way to address the problem, is to have domain-specific applications that have been designed to have what we're calling error checking built in. So in the case, I'll give a specific example. Go back to writing a legal brief. A tool that uses both an LLM to do the drafting, but that has access to a database of legal cases that it can use to either generate or check the citations to make sure that they are accurate and reflect real court decisions and are not hallucinations. Those two things can be married together in a smart way to produce a tool that gets the best of both worlds. The best of the summarizing generative aspect of a large language model, and the best of the accuracy of an old-fashioned database search or search engine. Those are some of them, again, already on the market, and I suspect in the next year we're going to see a flurry of more of those domain-specific tools, because that's the low-hanging fruit, is to apply that type of approach in specific domains. And the great news for businesses that are not software development businesses is they can then license an external tool and not have to worry about developing one on their own. Let me just say, there is an aspect of the inaccuracy, if we call it that, of LLMs that is different in a way than what we've seen in previous generations of technology, which is that when you use a tool like ChatGPT to produce an output, there's actually two things. One is there's no clear indication of what its sources were. So that can make it a lot more difficult to either know when you need to check accuracy or to engage in that checking of accuracy. If you use Google to do a search and it comes up with 50 websites, you might look at what those sites are and just use the source as a heuristic for what to check. So maybe there's certain newspapers you trust more than some no-name website, and you can tell that immediately in your Google search results. An LLM just churns through text and produces it and doesn't tell you where it got any of this information from. So if there's in a variety of ways, there's often no clear cues that the output of an LLM gives you as a human to trigger you, to raise your red radar, and say, oh, this is something I maybe shouldn't rely on too well. So that means for individuals and for businesses, you just have to adopt more of a general trust but verify attitude. Don't rely on the accuracy of anything an LLM gives you without verifying it in some way. And the second thing is that this has been called the jagged frontier of AI, which is it's a very strange thing that large language models do certain things incredibly well and quickly. Again, I'd say summarizing text, rephrasing text in different ways, whether it be, everyone I think knows now, explain the following to me like I'm a 5-year-old, or explain this to me like I'm an expert. Put this in a humorous tone or something. I mean, those are, LLMs tend to be incredibly good at that. And yet they're really, really bad at some other things. So that's the jagged frontier. I often picture in my mind, I have an image of a guy who goes to the gym and only works on his arms, right? And he's got these huge biceps and tiny little scrawny legs. That's kind of what an LLM is like. But the output doesn't give you a clue that that's what's going on. Every answer you get from ChatGPT sort of portrays as if it's equally good. But so that's again why it's a strange situation where the tool itself or its output doesn't give you any indication of what its quality is. And so that's why I understand and validate the criticisms of hallucinations and so forth. But what I don't agree with is then jumping to the conclusion that you should never use the tools. I think a wiser, more productive conclusion is learn what the strengths and weaknesses are so that you can either choose when to use certain tools and when not to use them, and when and how to massage or error correct or improve upon the outputs. And given the incredible speed, I mean, look, the unstated assumption we're talking about is whether it be an LLM or other kinds of AI, you can produce outputs that would have taken a human 1,000 times longer to produce, and maybe not even produce output that was good. When you're dealing with that kind of speed and cost amplification, you have to take seriously the value of it and at least look into how can I retain most of those benefits by coupling it with some on the input side or output side correction to still get a very, very significant improvement in quality, speed, and reduction in cost.
And one thing I want to add, Robert, and this is back to something you mentioned a couple of minutes back. It's regarding us humans. We want to be lazy, actually. Let's face it. Humans by nature, the brain give always the commands to search for shortcuts. And when this is something even I learned by practice when I start to use these tools, because when I was thinking, okay, that AI can do everything for me. And then I figured out, I did a couple of mistakes myself and said, hey, hold on, I need to check on the work of AI. Yeah, it's not 100% accurate, but actually I can say, at least for me, 90% of the time it was accurate. And even I start to share with everyone, like, guys, look, it's not bad idea to go, for example, write a marketing material, an email copywriting, whatever. But when you copy and paste it, check it before, right? So at least go and read it. You need to still do that. And the second thing, because what you mentioned, Robert, reminded me of when Wikipedia first appeared, right? So, and everyone's saying, okay, let's use Wikipedia. And, people start later on, they say, okay, but you need to go check the sources, because this is something, it's a collaborative work of many contributors, and maybe some people will have bias. And here I can relate to the, AI, LLM, and the bias data and all this. So, like any other technology, we don't need to assume 100% that we can just give it the word and it will do that for us. And I think this is a very valid point, and the way how we can enhance it, to your point. And I think, even OpenAI, even Google, they have this capability within the interface. If you like it, you have the thumb up. If you disagree, you have the thumb down. And even you can write some commands. And I know, at least in the enterprise edition of ChatGPT, like even you can customize the LLM the way you want, and even you can give the instruction how you want it. Even you can do it if you have the plus. So I can go and say, hey, my name is Mehmet. This is what I do. This is what I live. So every time I ask something, it takes these instructions and it knows, what I'm trying to do. So it starts to learn. So this is the feedback loop. To your point, Robert, is very important. And people, they should not be lazy too much, relying 100%, of course. And this is why, like any other technology, this is also remind me of one of my guests who mentioned about, for example, the autopilot of a car, right? The self-driving car. Like at some stages, even they tell you in such situation, don't enable the self-driving because you need to be in control. So this is the same thing. Now, one final thing as we approach that, and Robert, and I love this, but let's try to hear it from you also as well. It's about learning from history. And in the article you mentioned about, Blaise Pascal and the evolution of mechanical calculators. So, and you did this, I would say, analogy of this. So what are the lessons from the history of technological advancements that you believe are particularly relevant to the current discourse of the AI?
Yeah, I mean, this is where we get a little bit philosophical and introspective, but I think it's very important. The quote I used from Blaise Pascal, when he invented the first mechanical calculator, it was 1640 or so. So we're talking about, 400 years ago. And what he said, and I'm not going to remember it exactly, but he said, I hope that this invention, which can perform arithmetic using gears and levers, will finally put to rest this misunderstanding or bias that we humans have for believing that that type of mental activity can only be performed by us and can't be, I think the English translation I had was something like those mental operations can't be consigned to a physical apparatus that can perform the same functions in a different way. And so I suspect at that time, he was dealing with the objection from people that, hey, you can't take mathematics, which is an inherently human endeavor, and put it into a machine. A machine can't think, a machine can't reason. And this is, mathematics is inherently something that involves thinking and reasoning and is something that is uniquely human. Those are exactly the same things people are saying today. Look at all the things that computers have been able to do, often in radically different ways than humans do them, but do them nonetheless. That proves Pascal's point that often mechanically you can perform a function that achieves the same result as a human would have, but in a radically different way. I mean, you mentioned chess, right? Computer chess programs don't really play chess in the same way as humans do, but they perform the same result. In the history of engineering, people often point to the airplane. For many years, people were trying to build, this is before the Wright brothers, how were people trying to build airplanes? They were looking at birds and they were trying to build mechanical devices that took off by flapping their wings. And then, the Wright brothers came along and realized you could achieve the same result using a different physical mechanism than we knew about before. This happens on and on again. But for some reason, humans are drawn to either one, believing that machines can only perform the same functions as we perform in our minds by doing those functions in the same way that we do. That's one misconception. And therefore, by trying to design systems that don't just achieve the same results as us, but that mimic our own way of doing it. And those often fail, right? And then something comes along, like a large language model, which I think actually doesn't produce text in a way that's very similar to the way the human mind does it. That's the approach that ended up being necessary to perform a similar function to us, but in a very different way. But chess is another example, and you can go on and on and on. So that's one belief, that it is necessary that in order to get the same results, you have to mimic a human mental processes, and that's often incorrect. The second thing is the belief that if a machine is producing output that looks like human output, but doesn't do it in the same way, it can't be useful. They're two flip sides of the same coin. And yet we've seen over and over again that it can, but we're running up against that, particularly that second belief, a lot right now. And I think, the proof is in the pudding. We don't have to engage really in debates over how LLMs are doing what they're doing, whether they're doing things the same way as us. I mean, the philosophical debate about whether human type reasoning is necessary to solve certain types of problems is an interesting one. But if people keep improving the technology and it just demonstrably is able to solve problems and achieve real world tasks, that's what's going to push things forward, regardless of whether the technology achieves those results in the same way as we do.
100%. And, again, I don't like to, whether it's achievable, we think it's doable, not doable. I would leave this to the flow of the events, I would say, because if I'm sure, and you talked about the AI winter, but was the very long back, but I'm sure that if you have asked someone maybe 1 month or 2 months before ChatGPT appeared, if something like this can happen, probably they'll tell you, maybe we still need 10 years, 15 years. Maybe it will never happen, right? So the only thing, and it's again, to your point, some stuff is philosophical a little bit, but what if I learned anything, during my career and the span of my observation of technology, never say never, right? Like we don't know where things can be heading, and everything is possible. The only thing which is, I believe it's true, is things are accelerating really, really fast. So I think, like someone just pulled the plug, and everything started now to go very fast, and I think no one can stop it. If you remember, Robert, last year there was some voices to slow down all these things, of course. And I found that I remember I was still doing some solo episodes, and I was saying, like, come on, guys, like, this is nonsense. Because if the big guys, they stop, this technology is already out, it's in the wild. The LLMs, they became, some of them, open sourced. The technology became very democratized, that you can't stop it anymore. Like, if Microsoft, OpenAI, Google, I don't know, like all these big companies, they don't do it, the bad guys gonna start to do it, and they're gonna do it. So better we stay, on the edge of the technology, and keep doing it. So this is my 2 cents at the end. So Robert, like, really, can you remind us where we can find more about you before we
Yeah.
close?
Yeah, thanks so much. I'll just close to chime in on what you
Sure.
said, about just seeing where the flow goes. I think this is a time in which we all would benefit from open-mindedness. Be open to your own biases or preconceived conclusions being wrong, perhaps. Being really curious, and humble. If you combine all and have a willingness to learn, if you combine all those things together, I think we can just move past a lot of these debates about what AI can or can't do. We'll see what it can do. As you said, that's to see where things are. We're going to see. None of us can answer in advance what it can or can't do. And none of us can answer whether it's going to be able to replace it. We have to just be open to new information as it comes to us, be open-minded, curious, and be willing to learn. So thanks for letting me get on the soapbox for a minute. In terms of where people can find me, if you're interested in everything I'm writing about in regards to skills that you need to leverage and take maximum benefit of AI, go to robertplotkin.com. You can always follow me on LinkedIn. I post there really regularly, linkedin.com/in/Robert Plotkin. And on, I think what we talked about more last time, the patenting of AI and patenting of the software side of things, you go to my law firm at blueshiftip.com.
Thank you very much, Robert. And for the listeners, you can go check all the links in the show notes. You will find them there. Thank you again, Robert, for this very insightful discussion. Again, I enjoyed the conversation, like always, and I'm sure the audience also will love it. And this is how we end every episode. So for the people who that just discovered this podcast for the first time, thank you for passing by. I hope you enjoyed it. And I appreciate if you can give us a thumb up, and also to subscribe. We are available on all podcasting platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the rest, Google Podcasts, and so on. And if you are one of the loyal followers, thank you very much for all your support and for your loyalty. I appreciate that. Keep your feedback coming. Keep your reviews coming. Even if you don't like anything, you can just try this. I love also to read, like, feedbacks about something I should enhance, right? So keep them coming. And also, if you're interested to be on the show, don't hesitate to reach out. You know where to find me, and hope to meet again in a new episode very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.